to tonight's fireside. Tonight's presenter is our dear friend Hooshmand Badee, who will be talking about Abdu'l-Baha's viewpoint on economics. And obviously bearing in mind that we're approaching this special commemoration of the centenary of the ascension of the Master Abdu'l-Baha. So it will be very illuminating really to hear our dear friend Hooshmand present this topic on Abdu'l-Baha. So before the actual talk, we've asked our dear friend Hida to recite a short prayer for us, after which Hooshmand will be presenting. I just ask if you can please put your speakers on mute whilst the prayer is being read. Thank you.
O Lord, we are weak, strengthen us. O God, we are ignorant, make us knowing. O Lord, we are poor, make us wealthy. O God, we are dead, quicken us. O Lord, we are humiliation itself, glorify us in thy kingdom. If thou dost assist us, O Lord, we shall become as scintillating stars. If thou dost not assist us, we shall become lower than the earth. O Lord, strengthen us. O God, confer victory upon us. O God, enable us to conquer self and overcome desire. O Lord, deliver us from the bondage of the material world. O Lord, quicken us through the breath of the Holy Spirit, in order that we may rise to serve Thee, engage in worshipping Thee, and exert ourselves in Thy kingdom with the utmost sincerity. O Lord, Thou art powerful. O God, Thou art forgiving. O Lord, Thou art compassionate. Abdu'l-Baha.
Thank you, dear Hida. Dear Hooshmand, please.
Well, thank you very much. Beautiful prayer and very appropriate prayer for the topic we are doing tonight. And thank you, Hida. Thank you, Nick, for inviting me to this beautiful fireside. If you allow me, I will share my PowerPoint with you, and then we start from here. And I hope everything is okay. May you please tell me if it is okay?
No, it's not. We can see the other side as well.
Okay, so let me stop
Maybe,
it.
yeah, maybe come off it again and come back in.
Yeah, and then.
That is perfect.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
You can say yes.
Yeah.
Are you on presenter's view?
Can you see the presenter view?
No, no.
All right. Okay then.
I can see it.
Yeah, we can see full screen the first page of the presentation.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Very good. So as you see, and Nick explained, these days actually the Baha'i community throughout the world is celebrating the centenary of the ascension of Abdu'l-Baha and his service to humanity. I have to mention that for this topic, we are not really doing justice to such a big topic, this requires really a course to be studied. And of course, we are in this fireside, and I have chosen a few topics from the writings of Abdu'l-Baha to share with you. Let's begin with Abdu'l-Baha's view on the concept of economics. This word, the word economics, has come from the Greek word oikonomia, which means household management. And this ancient meaning of the word helps us to understand its modern use. It refers to the management of the income and expenses of a household, of a government, and organizations. Abdu'l-Baha uses this concept of household when explaining the economic arrangement of society. For example, he said, this household is not well managed, this household is not living under a perfect law. So here he refers to a need for legislation to aid the proper functioning of a household or a nation. In other words, Abdu'l-Baha supports government intervention in the market to balance the economy. Then he continues, a law must be given to this family by means of which all the members of this family will enjoy equal well-being and happiness. Now, in this passage, using the concept of household, Abdu'l-Baha talks about the role of government in establishing legislation to ensure that the well-being of the whole nation is created. And he said, establishing just legislation and economics in order that all humanity may enjoy a full measure of welfare and well-being and privilege. But this will always be according to legal protection and procedure. The question of wage and income is addressed by Abdu'l-Baha. For having an adequate standard of living, Abdu'l-Baha considered a fair wage system which is more than just a minimum wage. It is a living wage. In other words, it is the minimum income necessary for a worker to meet their needs that are considered to be basic. Therefore, he suggests that workers be paid part of the company's profits, and this share would be separate from the normal wage employees receive. He said, according to the divine law, no wages should be given to the employee. Nay, rather, indeed, they are partners in every work. Now, the idea of profit sharing means that employers should consider employees as assets to be retained rather than a cost to be reduced. Profit sharing is also supported as an effective method for wealth redistribution. So Abdu'l-Baha recommends profit sharing as a solution to one form of economic problems. The recommendation is that a share in the fourth or the fifth part of the profit be paid to workers according to the capacity of the factory. In modern times, the idea of the living wage is strongly supported for sustainability at all levels. But how do we get from our present world condition to a more sensible, equitable, and sustainable lifestyle? This, according to Abdu'l-Baha, can be done through either adjustment of means of livelihood in human society, and this requires a change in lifestyle for both the rich and the poor, or through what Abdu'l-Baha said, the readjustment of the economic laws for the livelihood of man in order that all humanity may live in the greatest happiness according to their respective degrees. Now, long before the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948 was made, Abdu'l-Baha emphasized various aspects of human rights. Human rights are including living in dignity and being free from needs, the human rights to be free from poverty, including the rights to an adequate standard of living, the right to work, the right to a healthy and safe environment, the right to primary health care, and the right to education, and also the right to be free from hunger. In one place, Abdu'l-Baha said that nobody should die of hunger. In the Baha'i writings, although labor and capital and knowledge and technology are important, but according to Abdu'l-Baha, the economy begins with farmers. It should be noted that the importance of agriculture and many other economic issues discussed by Abdu'l-Baha are in the writings of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. On the question of agriculture, Abdu'l-Baha states first and foremost is the principle that to all the members of the body politics shall be given the greatest achievements of the world of humanity. Each one shall have the utmost welfare and well-being. To solve this problem, we must begin with the farmer. There will lay a foundation for a system and order because the peasant class and the agricultural class exceed other classes in the importance of their service. Talking about agriculture, food plays a vital role not only in physical and intellectual development, but also in maintaining good health. Abdu'l-Baha explains the reason for having good health. He said, looking after one's health is done with two intentions. Man may take good care of his body for the purpose of satisfying his personal wishes, or he may look after his health with the good intention of serving humanity and of living long enough to perform his duty towards mankind. And then Abdu'l-Baha says that the latter is most commendable. There are also references to international trade in the writings of Abdu'l-Baha. The question of international trade has a close association with a popular statement of Baha'u'llah that states the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens. In relation to international trade, Abdu'l-Baha in The Secret of Divine Civilization urges Iranians to look to the expansion of trade with the nations of the East and the West, develop natural resources, and increase the wealth of people. This is significant because traditionally, developed countries have often used developing countries as a source of cheap natural resources that could be used in the production of goods. The focus has now shifted, and a number of developing countries are using a more advanced knowledge and technology. The movement of manufacturing to the developing world has allowed them to improve their comparative advantage and attain relative prosperity. Abdu'l-Baha also called upon the Iranian to learn modern concepts, new systems and procedures, progressive enterprise from the people of Europe. Although these writings are addressed to the citizens of Iran, the comments have universal implications. To have skill and a professional is also encouraged in the writings of the Baha'i faith. In this passage, Abdu'l-Baha said, strive as much as possible to become proficient in the science of agriculture, for in accordance with the divine teachings, the acquisition of science and the perfection of arts is considered as acts of worship. Now, to pursue a profession such as agriculture arts, sciences, and technology, as well as in the fields of education and health and social services, are all relevant examples of work as worship. Abdu'l-Baha's view on work as worship is to attempt to achieve perfection in one's profession, which is closely related to skill learning. Addressing an individual Baha'i, he said, "Thou must endeavor greatly so that thou mayest become unique in thy profession and famous in those parts." The view of production and producing products at highest level can be interpreted as a source of efficiency and sustainability. Also, Abdu'l-Baha's view on equality of opportunity for women and men in the social and economic contribution is of great importance. His view has an important implication in increasing the supply of the workforce and hence the level of production. In one of his writings, he said, "Women have astonishing capacities." Now, the benefits of discovering and using the capacity of women are many and affect the whole of society. These include increasing economic growth worldwide, particularly in developing countries, and a decline in the number of people living in poverty. Therefore, statements such as womankind may develop equal capacity and importance with man in the social and economic equation, if applied in practice, would significantly enable the other half of human population, that is women, to engage in all levels of social and economic activities once the equal opportunity is provided. Now, dear friends, COVID-19 and COP26 and human displacement are issues we are facing every day and shows the level of high interdependency of not only humans, but the whole planet. Abdu'l-Baha's view on the interdependency of people and nations are stated in several of his writings. For example, in this passage, he said all the members of the human family, whether peoples or governments, cities or villages, have become increasingly interdependent. And then he said, for none is self-sufficiency any longer possible. COP26 in Glasgow, finished just a few days ago, is a clear example of the realization of what Abdu'l-Baha said, that for none is self-sufficiency any longer possible. One reason that world leaders gather in many conferences to discuss issues related to the environment and human rights and poverty and other global issues is that they have realized that they are not able to deal with global issues and even their own internal issues alone, and are in need to support each other. So with COP26 and other similar events, the embryonic condition for greater integration is created. In Abdu'l-Baha's view, wealth creation is good. It is praiseworthy if it is acquired lawfully through honest work and if it is spent sensibly. In this passage, he said, wealth is praiseworthy in the highest degree if it is acquired by an individual's own effort and the grace of God, in commerce, agriculture, art, and industry, and if it be expended for philanthropic purposes. Now, according to this passage, the first condition for acquiring wealth is that it must be earned by one's own efforts. And this confirms the need to work and be a productive member of the community. The second condition is that the income earned to be spent on charitable and philanthropic activities. And this is an indication that the Baha'i community is directed towards attaining a culture of philanthropic and humanitarian and benevolent activities, and the responsibility of the wealthy people to take care of the poor. Abdu'l-Baha's view on the responsibility of the wealthy to take care of the poor need further discussion. Abdu'l-Baha comments that the poor should not force the rich people to share their wealth. He said here, sharing is a personally chosen righteous act. That is the right. The rich should extend assistance to the poor. They should expand their substance for the poor, but of their own free will, and not because the poor have gained this end by force. Now, the process leading to distributive justice morally requires a great deal of faith and obedience to the teachings of the faith by both the poor and the rich. It is in this way that the Baha'i community can function in a more secure and orderly manner. Abdu'l-Baha also clarifies this point by advising Baha'is that this will be a gradual process in the Baha'i community. He said, it will not be possible in the future for men to amass great fortunes by the labor of others. The rich will willingly divide. They will come to this gradually, naturally, by their own volition. A condition put forward by Abdu'l-Baha for the rich to share their wealth willingly is for them to become more sensitive and show compassion towards others. In this passage, he said, the time will come in the near future when humanity will become so much more sensitive than at present that the man of great wealth will not enjoy his luxury in comparison with the deploring poverty about him. So perhaps one reason that some rich countries today are helping the poor is the realization that in the long run, it becomes the problems of the rich countries. A discussion of the relationship between the voluntary distribution of wealth and the main goal of the Baha'i faith, unity, is also worthy of discussion. It can be said that there is a direct relationship between unity and voluntary giving. The acquisition of wealth is acceptable to the extent that it serves as a means for achieving higher ends, which is unity of humankind. The ultimate goal for a Baha'i is the achievement of unity of mankind. Abdu'l-Baha envisaged in the future that the rich shall most willingly extend assistance to the poor. Therefore, friends, this view of Abdu'l-Baha indicates that in the future, as more people advance spiritually and become conscious of the needs of others, then the social function of wealth is better understood in relation to the goal of unity. One of the basic principles of modern economic system is the principle of self-interest. Abdu'l-Baha's view is collective interest rather than self-interest. He describes self-interest in relation to the duality of human nature. The impulse of self-interest belongs to the lower nature. The virtue of benevolence belongs to the higher nature of human beings and is a source of human perfection and true happiness. Therefore, we are not economic man. We are spiritually by nature, and economics is just a means for spiritual growth. In self-interest, a choice has to be made, and that choice is the best one available for a person. most people make most of their choices in their own self-interest. A Baha'i view, on the other hand, would be making choices that promote collective interest. Baha'is are told to stay away from all kinds of selfish and egoistic activities. In this passage, Abdu'l-Baha states, today, all the peoples of the world are indulging in self-interest and exerts the utmost effort and endeavor to promote their own material interest. They are worshipping themselves and not the divine reality, nor the world of mankind. They seek diligently their own benefit and not the common weal. This is because they are captives of the world of nature and unaware of the divine teachings. Another basic principle of modern economics is competition in the free market economy. Abdu'l-Baha's view is to exercise cooperation instead of competition. He said, the base of life is this mutual aid and helpfulness, and the cause of destruction and non-existence would be the interruption of this mutual assistance. The more the world aspires to civilization, the more this important matter of cooperation becomes manifest. So, friends, it's worth keeping in mind the reason of having competition as one of the pillars of the free market economy. The competition was needed during the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century with an increasing level of manufacturing products. Competition played a major role in the process of distribution of those products. However, from the mid-20th century, competition has changed its face. What we are having today is relentless and aggressive and selfish competition. In practice, through this kind of competition and an uncontrolled and unregulated market, small and vulnerable businesses are destroyed and eventually go out of the market, and others are even scared to enter the market because they are not able to compete with those huge corporations. The important feature of Baha'i development is that it must respond to both material and spiritual needs in a balanced way. Abdu'l-Baha's view is that human beings are essentially spiritual in nature, and happiness and well-being will be ideally satisfied if the spiritual aspects of their life is fulfilled and developed alongside the material. In this passage, he said, although material civilization is one of the means for the progress of world of mankind, yet until it becomes combined with the divine civilization, the desired results, which is the felicity of mankind, will not be attained. Abdu'l-Baha also recommended that the extremes of wealth and poverty need to be remedied. In 1912, in Paris, he said, we see amongst us men who are overburdened with riches on the one hand, and on the other, those unfortunate ones who starve with nothing. Those who possess several stately palaces and those who have not where to lay their head. Some we find with numerous courses of costly and dainty food, whilst others can scarce find sufficient crust to keep them alive. Whilst some are clothed in velvets, furs, and fine linen, others have insufficient hoar and thin garments with which to protect them from the cold. Therefore, for Abdu'l-Baha, this condition of affairs is wrong and must be remedied. Well, friends, to end this short presentation, I like to say that if we want to single out one Baha'i principle as a solution to many economic problems, moderation is that principle. Moderation in economic sustainability that requires creating a balance between the lowest and the highest standard of living. One extreme is when, according to Abdu'l-Baha, the rich enjoy the greatest luxury and comfort. And the other extreme, according to him, is when the poor are in the state of abject need. Therefore, moderation is a condition when, according to Abdu'l-Baha, there will not be the abnormally rich nor the abject poor. The rich will enjoy the privilege of this new economic condition as well as the poor. Therefore, the economic description of moderation is expressed as eliminating extremes of wealth and poverty. Abdu'l-Baha also states that material advancement serves evil ends. Now, examples of evil ends of materialism are consumerism, damaging the ecosystem, aggressive competition, self-interest, and much more. And in our day-to-day living, the application of moderation in relation to, for example, food is seen as eating simple, enjoyable, healthy, sustainable, lawful, and being thoughtful. It's just one example of how moderation can be done in practice. Now, friends, let me also add this slide here, because for some friends of the faith, they are viewing that these principles are ideal, but they are not working. In other words, some friends say that these principles are utopian. They are idealistic, but in reality, they are not working. Let me say that in the Baha'i community, for example, if the humanity is at this point, and the goal of Baha'is is to reach there, that is uniting humanity, uniting the oneness of humanity. In the Baha'i faith, there are long-term goals. These long-term plans or long-term goals are given by Baha'u'llah. And for at least 1,000 years, Baha'u'llah has guided the Baha'i community through various principles in his writings. Not only we have the long-term plan, we also have short-term plans that is given to the Baha'i community and to the Baha'is by the supreme institution of the Baha'i faith, the Universal House of Justice. These short-term plans guide the Baha'i community and Baha'is on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, to achieve these long-term plans that Baha'u'llah is given us. So the principles of the Baha'i faith, and that I mentioned some of them in this presentation, they are not only ideal, but also they are working because we have both long-term plans and short-term plans. Well, thank you very much, friends. I'm going to stop here, and maybe we can have some discussion and comments by friends. Many thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing this with us, Hooshmand. I think there's a lot of I think food for thought there, really, in these principles and concepts expressed by Abdu'l-Baha, which you have kindly shared with us. So very, very interesting, and also it seems very different from, I think, most of the ideas and economic theories prevalent in today's society. Really, you know, I think there were several things that may make us think a bit about that. Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned, I have just chosen a few of those topics, you know, for this particular fireside. I like to mention to friends that if you are familiar with this book, The Principles of Spiritual Economics, over 700 passages from the Baha'i writings on the idea, on the principle of economics and related subjects are gathered. So the idea, the subject of economics really should be studied as a course. But I mean, I'm just mentioned a few points that we can have some discussion here.
Imagine if there was a course in Baha'i economics taught at university. I think all the students would be saying, well, I never learned anything of this during my regular courses of economics, you know.
Yeah. Well, we have two courses in Wilmette Institute, and one of them currently is going on, and that is about distributive justice. This is more advanced level, and then we have the first one, which is more about community building through economic systems.
Wonderful. Thank you.
May I ask, are you the author of Principles of Spiritual?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that is. And the other book that I like to, if you are interested, is this one, Economics and the Baha'i Faith. This actually is my university thesis, my PhD thesis. This is an explanation of Baha'i economics. Both of them are online on Amazon, and you can get them there.
Could I ask a question, if it's okay? I mean, you just in the book that you just showed, basically mentioned about spiritual economic. Today's economic, obviously, that is run in humanity as a whole, is not connected to that, the spiritual forces. It's very selfish, basically. And this is one of the objectives of the Baha'i Faith, I think, that eventually, when the divine justice comes into economics and the welfare of human beings, shall I say, that is where the completion, when the act will be completed, and people on the positions of making decisions, obviously, with having divine understanding of a spiritual connection of human being and wealth, shall I say, then the decisions that are made would be completely different to the ones that you mentioned in your slides about the selfish ones. And one cannot help to remember what Abdu'l-Baha mentions about the material world is just like the gravity has a force. And this it's this force that draws humanity basically to self. And that is the typical example that we have today in our society, that, as you mentioned, is too much self is going on in the economic terms around the collective economic interests, shall I say. And this is my question, actually, is, I mean, we can see the ills in the society today, but obviously the society that is ill cannot see that they are ill, basically. I mean, how far can this be sustainable, shall I say, for humanity, until they come to that point that Abdu'l-Baha mentions? It would be the day that they will recognize, the rich will recognize that they have to share their wealth with the poor. So, I mean, in real terms, how would that be compatible in today's humanity?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, it is. Thank you for your comment, and good question. My view is that we are progressing. You know, we are progressing. Let me just mention this definition of economics, which mainly started in 1776 by the father of economics, father of modern economics, Adam Smith. And in 1776, he considered humans as economic man. You know, that was the idea in 1776. When we come to the early 20th century, we see that the idea is changing. For example, in 1932, one economist, Lionel Robbins, he says that for economic take place, we need to make decisions. And when we are making decisions, we have to consider ethical issues. And it is very interesting. If you know, for example, sorry, I mentioned some technical term here. You see, when we go to the market, there are buyers and sellers. In economic terms, we say supply and demand. Demand on the side of buyers and the supply on the part of sellers. When these buyers and sellers come into contact to buy goods and services, as you said, they have to make a decision. They are in relationship. You know, I am the buyer, you are the seller. When we come into contact, we are in a relationship. And whenever we are in a relationship, ethical issues must be the basis of that. And here the economists come to change that idea of economic man, that humans are not only material. We are a part of that. A part of us is spiritual. This idea of what is spiritual economics is very, very interesting. Let me say another example, if the time is okay. You see, I don't know, you remember 2008, which was global financial crisis. It started 2007, 2008. It started in America with the banking system, and then immediately came to Europe, and then after a few years to the rest of the world. Now, in 2008, policymakers, especially American and European, they said that the root cause of this global financial crisis is money. So they started to solve the problem through money. They printed more money, you know, the interest rate started to drop. There was a policy of quantitative easing, you know, giving billions and billions of money to the companies who created the problem, to the banks who were the source of the problem. Also, billions of money went to the hands of these people. You know, from an economic perspective, when we are trying to solve a problem through interest rate, which was one of the policies in 2008, we should get the answer in 18 months, 1.5 years. 5 years passed, 6 years passed, 7 years passed. We couldn't solve the problem with quantitative easing and interest rate. The problem was still there. After 7, 8 years, the same policymakers who said that the root cause of the problem is money, they changed their idea. They said the root cause of money is not money. The root cause of problem was lack of honesty, lack of trustworthiness, mismanagement of money, and not money. So that shows that we are experiencing, even in this COP26, leaders from more than 100 countries, they came together, you know, and several times, many, many times, the leaders of the world mentioned the word trust, cooperation. So, as Abdu'l-Baha said, this is a process. We are going through this process, and humanity is realizing that we have to work together, and we are in relationship. And anytime we are in relationship, ethics is a part of that.
Thank you. I think Sandra raised her hand. I think she wanted to say something. Sandra?
Thank you. Hi. Yes, I had a question. So we've got a capitalist system now, and the whole point about capitalism is it revolves around the generation of capital, either as money or goods or human work translated into, people are actually called human capital, is considered part of an economy. If we're working with a system that's fundamentally based on the generation of more, and that the generation of wealth is through continual buying by consumers, how do we move from an economy continually based around having to get people to keep buying? So, and as a result, the rise of materialism has gone hand in hand with the rise of capitalism. Why is it that we are continuing to have a system like that? And how do we move out of that into the Baha'i system? Because I don't understand how we can have a spiritual economy if it's still a capitalist economy. So what kind of economy would we have?
Yeah, thank you, Sandra. Yeah, this is a great question, and in a big question, the problem can be solved in two ways. One from the individual perspective and one from the government perspective. So we have this free market capitalism. The question is that if we don't have this free market capitalism, what is the alternative? With so much problem that we have with free market capitalism, if we don't have free market capitalism, what else we are having? Do we have an alternative better than this system? Let's have it. The question is that we don't want to try to eliminate free market economy. There are advantages in the free market economy, but the question is how to fix it rather than reject it. And that's how Shoghi Effendi actually talking about that. Shoghi Effendi says that this free market economy must be regulated, organized, and restricted. Those are the three words Shoghi Effendi talking about that. That this free market economy must be regulated and organized and even restricted. Now, again, going back to the 2008, the governments, especially in Europe and America, they came to this decision that in order to fix free market economy and save it, we have to regulate it. And that's what the European Commission and the UK is actually regulating that. We have a commission committee that regulating the free market economy in UK. We have also European Commission doing that one. We also have in America, and we have in other countries. So they have realized that this free market economy can be saved. We have to fix it and regulate it. So that's from the government perspective. But from us, from an individual perspective, we also have a duty. And that was mentioned in COP26. And a lot of leaders and campaigners that said that individuals have a responsibility to take care of this environment. So from a Baha'i perspective, remember that all the systems that we have are old system, is old order. Baha'is have a new world order. It takes time for us to bring this new world order to this world. But still we are dealing with this old order. And in my view, these conferences like COP26 and similar events, what they are doing really is they are repairing the problem. They are not fixing the problem. If they want to fix the problem, they have to look at the new world order of Baha'u'llah. And we Baha'is are setting the foundation. I mentioned here about 15 principles that Abdu'l-Baha is talking about that. And these are the basic, the foundation of a new world order in economics. So this is what, in my view, that individuals have a duty, governments have a duty, communities have a duty to play as a whole. But we are stuck with this free market economy, so it is better to fix it rather than reject it.
So what can you name a couple of things about how it would be fixed, or could be, what are they doing to fix? Just a couple of examples.
Yes. For example, the capitalist. You know, the role of capitalist today is to accumulate money. So Abdu'l-Baha is talking about profit sharing. And this profit sharing is now actually is in practice by many organizations. But the profit sharing that Abdu'l-Baha is talking is different from profit sharing that right now they are doing. The profit sharing that a number of companies doing, they are paying only 2 or 3% of the huge profit they are making. Abdu'l-Baha is talking about 20%, 25%. Therefore, if we have that kind of profit sharing, the money will not be accumulated in the hands of few. You know, even in one place, Abdu'l-Baha says that the workers should not be paid wages. They should be partners in the organizations. So imagine if workers become partners in organization and the profit sharing, how much this huge profit in the hands of capitalists will be distributed among workers, and extremes of wealth and poverty will be lowered. So the role of capitalist must be changed. I use the word of philanthro-capitalist instead of capitalist alone. There are many other examples in the Baha'i writings about that.
I think May and Jenna, one of them, I'm not sure which one of them, raise their hands.
Yeah, sorry, I don't understand much about economics, but I was just reminded of an example I heard some times ago when Hooshmand was talking about how interrelated and interdependent are we. There was this professor in Singapore University somewhere, and the example he was giving was that in the past, we were like, the countries were like small boats in the ocean. Each country was on its own, and they were, managing their boats for them by themselves. But now, all the countries are like smaller cabins in a big ship, and they are so much related, interdependent on one another, that suppose if you have you make your cabin the best cabin, the strongest cabin, still if there is leak on another cabin, you are going to sink as well. So there is no use if you only think about your own cabin in this world, in this big ocean. You are part of the all other cabins in the ship, and you have to be careful about other cabins also. So that's how all the countries must be thinking about other people. We see that the first world countries are trying to, gain money for themselves. They are trying to save their own resources and exploit other countries, but then they don't understand that they are going to be harmed also because they are part of this big ship.
Let me add here that Jana, or Dr. Jana, is an international scientist, and her research and papers are distributed and published in scientific journals, and she has a lot of experience in Bangladesh with the poor people. Let me also say that we lived in Bangladesh for 10 years, and a few years ago I had a meeting with Professor Muhammad Yunus. He's a Nobel Prize winner, and I had a meeting with him, and I think Jana was also there in that meeting. I asked him, because Bangladesh in 1975 was one of the poorest countries in the world. not anymore today. So I asked that question from Dr. Yunus, that what are the reasons that Bangladesh has come out of that absolute poverty? It was very interesting that he mentioned a few things, and all of them were in the writings of the Baha'i faith. Yeah, I mentioned that in one of my talks. It is on YouTube. You can, but it was very interesting. Today, education, the enrollment of girls especially is one of them, and that is a reason for reducing the population growth in Bangladesh.